I never imagined the night I'd come home early and find my wife Gina entangled with my best friend John. The betrayal hit me like a sledgehammer, shattering every ounce of trust. Consumed by rage, I devised a merciless plan. Hidden cameras captured their deceit. At a grand gala, I played the footage for all to see, turning their world to ashes. Their laughter turned to screams as my vengeance unfolded. They thought they could break me, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. This is my story. Witness the reckoning. Choices she made hers and I made mine. It was a lovely sunset. The sun shined on the horizon and colored the sky with bright shades of orange and purple. The air felt warm, just like you would expect in Southern California. It was Saturday night, and we were having our weekly get-together with friends. These friends had been in our lives for 20 years. My wife had known them even longer. Tonight, we were at Scott and Andrea's house. Scott owned several fast food places, which was funny because he never ate that kind of food. He was really into healthy eating. He got into the fast food business as a way to make money, and it worked out well for him. Nowadays, he spent most of his time checking on his places, looking for new ideas, and managing his investments. Andrea worked at the front desk of the local elementary school. She did it mostly to keep busy. She has 2 kids, Holly, who is 15, and Matthew, who is 13. Bill is a vice president at a local sports supply company. He used to play baseball in college and almost went pro. However, a bad accident hurt his knee and cut his baseball dreams short. He believes it was meant to be because it led him to a sales job at the same company where he works now. That's also where he met his wife, Lisa, who works in the accounting office. They have one daughter named Tasha, and she is 14. John owns several car dealerships in town. He makes a good amount of money. His wife, Marcy, was a stay-at-home mom until she sadly passed away from cancer just over a year ago. She was only 41. They have a daughter named Savannah who is 21 and goes to university. My name is Henry. I am a master electrician, but right now I am working as a project manager for a big electrical company. I do quite well and earn a good salary. My wife, Gina, stays home to take care of the house and our family. We have an 18-year-old daughter named Natalie. She just started college at Savannah. Natalie is a freshman while Savannah is a senior. Because the campus is so big, they don't see each other very often. We have all been friends for many years, and we gather every week to keep in touch. Everyone except me met in college, and I got to know my wife and her friends right after they graduated. It's lucky that we have all stayed in this area and have done well in life. As I watch the sunset, I look around to see where everyone is. My wife is talking to John by the patio table. Scott and Bill are cooking on the grill, and Andrea and Lisa are inside finishing up the side dishes. I have always enjoyed these get-togethers. I can't think of many things better than a peaceful night with a wife you love, good food, and close friends. But since Marcy passed away last year, these get-togethers feel a bit sad. There is something missing, and I mean this for everyone, not just John. For a while, John stopped coming to our meetups. Seeing all the happy couples reminded him of his loss. But we didn't let him stay away for long. We made sure he felt he could still be part of our lives. The guys kept asking him to go fishing, golfing, or do anything fun, and the ladies encouraged him to leave the house too. They went shopping for him and even made some meals. If they hadn't helped, he probably would have just eaten fast food from one of Scott's places. As I sat there, I noticed John and Gina talking softly, glancing over at me now and then. "I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that." After being together for 20 years, we had gotten pretty good at doing our last tasks at the same time, and we managed to do it again this morning. We took a shower together, as we often do on weekends. Then, I got dressed to head into the garage and work on my car, while Gina handled her chores around the house. Sunday mornings are usually my time to focus on my car. Right now, I'm working on a 1965 Chevy Malibu SS Coupe. I bought it 2 years ago after it was found in a barn that was being torn down. It was in really bad shape, but I've almost gotten it back to how it originally looked. I prefer the classic style. I have a friend who loves Mustangs, but he usually works on the newer models. He adds a lot of extra parts, like big brakes and spoilers, making them look very different. They sometimes don't even seem like Mustangs anymore. They look good, but it's more like a mix of parts. I run into him at car shows from time to time. He doesn't like GM cars, but we both respect what the other does. Sweetheart, before you head to the garage, I want to talk about something. I shrugged, showing I was okay with it, and we sat at the kitchen table. Talking to each other is one of our strong points, and chats like this happen often. I didn't think much of it, but this talk would change my life in a big way. So how's the car coming along? It's going well. I finally got it running nicely. There are still a few parts I need to find for the inside, but I have enough to keep me busy for most of the morning. What do you plan to do today? Oh, the usual. A load of laundry, some weeding in the garden, and maybe a little dusting. Now that Natalie has moved out, there's not as much to do. So, what do we need to discuss? Well, as you've probably seen, John has started to open up more in the last few months. The women and I have been encouraging him to think about dating again. He's still young, and we believe Marcy would want him to be happy. I agree, I said. Even though he and Marcy loved each other, I can't picture her wanting him to be alone forever. Right. And last night he finally said he feels ready to start dating again. That's great! It will be good for him to move on. Does he have someone in mind? Gina paused for a moment, and I soon found out why. Actually, there is one special woman he really likes. He has known her for a while and has strong feelings for her. Is it someone we know? Well, the thing is, it's me. What do you mean, it's you? John wants to be with you? Yes, he told me that last night. Not fully grasping the seriousness of her words, I responded lightly, "Oh, well, I can see why. You're a smart, attractive woman. It's too bad you can't be with me." At that moment, she looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I realized she didn't agree with me about her not being available. It suddenly clicked. "Oh, I get it. You're trying to tell me that you want to be with him. You want a divorce." She looked up at me, clearly surprised by what I said. "No, Henry, I don't want a divorce. I want to be married to you forever." Then what is going on, Gina? You seem to be trying to say something I don't want to hear. It feels like it's about you wanting to be with John. Just tell me directly, please. Henry, please stay calm. Let me explain, okay? I leaned back in my chair, unsure of what was about to happen next. I had already thought that our time together this morning was meant to prepare me for what was coming, especially the part that focused on pleasing me. Henry, you know that everyone here except you met in college. It started with the four of us girls. First, Andrea met Scott at a party in our second year, and then she introduced her roommate, Lisa, to Bill. I also met John in one of my English classes. He was a good writer, and I was struggling, so he helped me improve my grades. What you didn't know is that John and I started dating. So you went out with John before Marcy? Why didn't anyone tell me this before? I'm getting to that, I promise. So like I said, John and I started dating, and we were really in love. We even talked about getting married. But one night, we were hanging out and had a bit too much to drink. John and Marcy ended up being together. I was really mad when I found out, but they said they were sorry and seemed honest. They told me it was just a mistake and it wouldn't happen again. I decided to take a chance and forgive them. I thought things would be okay, until Marcy showed up pregnant with Savannah. I saw Gina's eyes get wet as she told the story. I felt sorry for her, but I was also angry that I didn't know these things. She kept going. After thinking a lot and talking with his parents and his pastor, John decided to do what he thought was right. He asked Marcy to marry him, and she said yes. I was heartbroken, of course, but I understood why. It changed things between us, but we managed to stay friends, at least from a distance at first. We moved on, graduated from college, and then I met you. You and I fell in love, and over time, John and Marcy did too. We all decided to hide my relationship with John from you because we were worried it would mess up your friendship with him. We all thought we would grow old together, happily married, probably passing away right after each other. It was a silly thought, but that's how close we felt. If Marcy hadn't gotten sick, everything would have stayed buried in the back of your minds, and Henry would still be confused. Henry, don't say that about yourself. You're not confused. It happened, and it's done. He was happy with Marcy, and I was happy with you. So, you're saying you're not happy with me anymore? Not at all, my dear. I'm happier with you now than I have ever been. I love you, and I hope you felt that this morning. So that was part of some plan to prepare me for whatever you're trying to say? Nice. No, my love. It was to show you that I love you. That's everything. All right, so you and John loved each other, but then you both married other people. What does this have to do with us now? And if you don't want a divorce, then what is this really about? Gina stood up from the table and walked over to the kitchen window. She looked out at the yard we had worked hard on since we moved in 10 years ago. I was confused. Was she about to ask for permission to see John? If not that, then what was she getting at? Gina, waiting isn't going to help. Can you just tell me what you mean? Okay, Henry. I was thinking about how you would feel about, sharing me with him. I felt a rush of anger. I jumped up so quickly that my chair fell over and slid across the floor, hitting the cabinet. Gina jumped at the noise. Share you with him? So this is about you being with him? No, Henry, well, not exactly, no. Please take a breath so I can talk. You're making me nervous. You know what, Gina? I can't settle down right now. I need to step away for a bit and cool off. Maybe we can talk later, but I have to get away from you right now. I grabbed my keys and headed to the garage. The car I usually drove was up on blocks, so I took my truck instead. I turned up the radio and sped off from the house. I still didn't fully understand what she meant. She said it wasn't about getting a divorce and it wasn't cheating, but it did involve her having another connection. I knew that sharing in any way when it came to my wife was not okay. She was either completely mine or not mine at all. I guess soon enough, I would see which way this would go. Without meaning to, I drove past John's apartment and saw his nice car parked right in front. He had moved there shortly after Marcy passed away. The house they shared was full of memories of her and felt very empty now that Marcy was gone and Savannah was off at college. I could understand why they wanted to change things. I felt angry at Gina for even thinking about this, and I was also mad at John for his part in it. But then I thought about it more. I didn't really know if John wanted this or if it was Gina's idea first. I needed to find out the truth. Gina, this was not how I wanted things to go. I guess I was being unrealistic to think that Henry would let me spend time with John. I had tried to show Henry I loved him by being intimate with him this morning, and we had a nice time together. But I was confused. I had loved John first before I ever met Henry, and those feelings hadn't gone away. That was probably because we had all stayed friends and saw each other often. Maybe if John and I had not spoken for a long time, my feelings for him would have faded away. But even now, my heart skipped a beat when I saw him. I didn't understand that he felt the same way until last night. Andrea, Lisa, and I had been trying to help him start dating again. He was still young, just 42, and we knew he didn't want to be alone forever. We thought he should take enough time to grieve Marcy's passing, and then we started saying it was time to meet someone new. We didn't think he would find someone to marry right away. We just felt he needed to get back into the dating scene. He wasn't very open to the idea. It wasn't just that he wasn't ready, but he couldn't picture loving someone else as much as he loved Marcy. We kept pushing him, saying he didn't have to love someone that much right away. He just needed to let someone care for him. But last night at the barbecue, he surprised me. When he said he couldn't picture loving anyone else as much, he meant there was already one woman he loved that deeply, but didn't think he could love another the same way. That woman was me. He shared that he had always loved me, even more than Marcy. He still felt he made the right choice by marrying her, but he felt sad every time he saw Henry and me together. He said it had been a hard 20 years. Without really thinking, I told him that I still had feelings for him, and that I never stopped loving him. But I also said I loved Henry too, and I didn't want to hurt him. I thought John was suggesting we do something secret, but I wouldn't agree to that. But that wasn't what he wanted. He asked if I was really happy in my marriage. I told him I was. Again, he told me how much he loved me and how he wished we could be together forever. He wanted me to leave Henry and marry him so we could be together forever. I told him I couldn't do that, but for some reason the idea of sharing came to my mind. I've heard stories about people living double lives. They have families in 2 different places, and they tell each family they are away for work a lot when they are really going back and forth. The strange thing is, when they are with one family, they give all their love to them. They care for their wife or husband, they play with the kids, and they are truly there for them. They love both people and don't want to give up either one. That wouldn't work for me. I don't have a job, so I can't just leave for a few days. The only way this could work is if we were completely honest about it. I told John my idea, and even though he wasn't very excited about it being only part-time, he saw that I was trying to make it happen. He agreed that he would be glad to spend any time with me that I could give. But he also said he didn't think Henry would agree to it. I realized he was probably correct. After all, what man would want to share his wife with another man? I knew there were some people who were okay with that, but I thought of them as more like animals than real men. One thing that sets people apart from animals is our feelings and promises to each other. What man would willingly let go of a woman he claimed to love? This meant I might have to make a choice. Could I really leave Henry, the man I had loved for 20 years? He knew me well, my needs, my wishes, and my dreams. He understood me better than anyone else. Now I was thinking about being with someone new. But this new man was someone I didn't know in the same way. There was always a part of me that felt incomplete. When John and I were together, we just clicked. We talked about our future and the life we wanted to share. I was excited for that future. But everything changed when I saw him marrying Marcy. That moment broke my heart, and it took me a long time to heal. Even now, I wasn't sure if I was fully over it. Now I had a chance to live the dream I had 2 decades ago. Marcy was gone, may she rest in peace, and John still wanted to be with me. Could I let this chance go? Could I miss the chance to fill that missing piece of my life? I wasn't sure if I could do it. Henry, I got back home just before dinner. I had mainly been driving around. I did stop to eat lunch, but I avoided any of Scott's restaurants on purpose. In my mind, he was partly to blame for the mess we were in, and I didn't want to give him my $5. That would teach him. Gina was cooking something on the stove. She came over to hug me, but I put my hands up to stop her. Henry, Not until I know what you really want. I'm calm enough to listen now, but I don't want any more games. Just tell me straight and tell me fast. You say it's not a divorce and it's not an affair, so what is it? What did you mean when you said you wanted to share? I want you to know, Henry, that I love you a lot, but I also love John. I loved him back then, and I still do. I managed to handle everything for 20 years and focused on you because we were happily married. I have been completely loyal during that time, but you need to know that before we met, I imagined my life with John. I had dreams for our future together, and when that didn't happen, I felt empty, like something important was taken from me. Just tell me what you mean, Gina. All right, all right. What I'm saying is that I would live with John as a husband and wife part-time. I would spend the rest of the time with you. We would need to sort out the details, of course. When she finally shared her idea, I felt a heavy weight in my stomach. An affair would be bad enough, but this felt even worse if she really meant what it sounded like. So, you mean like you would spend 1 week with him and 1 week with me? Something like that? I could hear the hurt in my voice. All the loud feelings I had when I arrived were gone. Instead, I felt sad and in pain. I think she saw it on my face, too. Well, like I said, we need to figure out the details. That's one way things could go, but I would want you to have most of the time with me. That seems fair. I think she added this to make sure I knew I would still be the first husband. And when you say live as husband and wife, you mean being together, right? Yes, that's part of love, and we would want to show that. I was trying hard to understand what she was saying. I asked questions to buy time, and she thought I was really thinking about it. I knew I didn't want to share her, whatever that meant, but I had to calm down before I showed my real thoughts. And where will we live while this is happening? Are you going to stay in the house while John and I come and go? Or will you keep moving between us like some strange plan for sharing? Well, Henry, we can work out those details. We can figure out what is best. What do you think? John is okay with the idea. So he knows. Was this your idea then? Kind of. We talked about it. He said he wanted to be with me. I said it was too bad you both couldn't be together. He said he would be open to it. And that's how it all started. Of course he's open to it. He goes from having none of you to having some of you. Why wouldn't he? It's easy for him. I'm not easy, Henry. He cares for me, and I care for him. And what if I say no? What do you mean? What if I say no, I won't share you with John? What do we do then? Well, I guess that means I would have to make a choice. I knew exactly what that meant. That simple statement ended my marriage. If she really wanted to stay with me, she would have said something like, I'll tell John it's not happening. By saying it was a choice, she was just trying to find a gentle way to let me go. I understand. Well, I guess that is it. I will find somewhere else to sleep tonight and get a lawyer in the morning. I stepped into the garage, and the sun suddenly seemed less bright. I didn't feel like working on the Malibu anymore. I didn't plan to stay here longer than I had to, and I would take the car with me. Soon, I would need to get it ready to go. We would sell the house, or they could buy my part of it, but I would not live here. I realized that Gina never said my thoughts were wrong. Deep down, she knew she would choose John if she had to. So when I said no, the choice was already made. I went into our bedroom and started to pack some clothes for a few days. I pulled the suitcase to my truck while Gina stayed at the kitchen table. Her head was down, and she was looking at her coffee. She didn't try to stop me at all. I found it strange that I had cried about this, but she hadn't shed a tear. It showed me that she wasn't really sad to see me leave. She already had the man she truly wanted, so why would she be upset? It felt like a waste after 20 years together. I walked out the door and Gina still didn't move or say anything. I got into my truck and drove across town to a Motel 6. It was cheap and all I needed was a place to sleep. I would figure out something more permanent in a few days. I drove past John's apartment again without thinking much about it. This time, though, my feelings were different. I knew he was aware of what happened before. No one knows who threw that big rock through his car window late that night. John, when I saw my broken windshield, I knew right away who had done it, but I kept quiet. Even if I could prove it, which I couldn't, I wouldn't tell on Henry. I felt that I shouldn't, especially with everything going on. I knew Gina was planning to talk to him about our conversation, so his reaction made sense. I felt bad about it, really, but I had loved Gina for a long time, even longer than I had loved Marcy. I probably loved her more than I loved Marcy, and I cared about Marcy a lot. When the women started asking me about dating again, even just a little, I was hesitant. I was starting to feel better after losing Marcy, but the thought of being with another woman was hard to grasp. I had really loved 2 women in my life, not counting family, and I couldn't picture anyone else measuring up to them. Since Gina and I were still friends and met often, I knew that anyone I dated would always feel compared to her, and Gina would always come out on top. I only told Gina that I still loved her. I didn't bring it up with Andrea or Lisa for clear reasons. I was surprised when Gina said she loved me too. I feel bad to admit that, when I heard that, my worries about my friend's feelings took a back seat to my hopes that maybe I could finally be with Gina. I didn't want to hurt Henry, but I wanted Gina even more. I asked her if she was really happy in her marriage, and she said she was. I told her I wanted her to leave Henry and be with me. Part of her seemed to want that too, but she loved him and felt loyal to him. She joked about how sad it was that Henry and I couldn't share her, like those people who have 2 lives in different cities with 2 different families. I think I shocked her when I said I would be okay with it. After all, spending a few days with her was better than nothing. This made her think it could actually work if she could explain it well. I warned her that Henry would never agree to share someone who had always been his, and even talking about it could cause problems. But she was hopeful that Henry might agree, especially if it meant keeping her instead of losing her for good. This made it clear to me that I was her backup plan, and strangely, I was fine with that. I planned to get her at least part-time, no matter what. If Henry acted like I thought he would in his shoes, I might end up getting her full-time. In my head, I told myself it was Henry's choice. If he and Gina broke up, it would be his decision. That meant it was his fault, and I wasn't to blame. Henry woke up at 5 o'clock the next morning and took a cab back home. Gina usually wouldn't be up for a few hours, and I needed some time to fix the tires on the Malibu and get my tools ready. I was almost done when I saw Gina walk from the house to the garage. Sorry if I woke you. I'll be leaving soon. You didn't wake me. I can't sleep without you. I guess you'll have to learn how to. You were just going to sneak in and leave without saying anything to me? Do I really mean so little to you? You don't want me to answer that, Gina. I don't want you to go. I love you, Henry. You might not believe me, but I really do. I spent the best years of my life with you, Henry, and I want to share my future with you too. But I also love him, and I feel like my life would be missing something if I didn't spend some time with him. We don't have to be finished, Henry. It could just be a different kind of life. I felt a bit angry. You must think a lot of yourself if you believe that after 20 years together, I'd be all right with sharing you. The idea of two men wanting to share you and being okay with however much time you give them must really make you feel good about yourself. You don't need to be mean, Henry. And no, I don't think I'm some kind of prize, as you put it. I'm just a woman who loves two men and is trying to find a way for all of us to be happy. Don't worry about it. We'll be divorced soon, and then you can be with the person you've always wanted. I'm glad I was just someone to fill the space until he was ready. I couldn't help but start to cry a little. I felt like a total failure. What kind of man just loses his wife like this without doing anything wrong? The only thing I could think was that I wasn't worth being married to. I wasn't good enough. I felt like a loser, and I had lost. Henry, please don't think I saw you that way. I married you with the hope and plan of being happy together for the rest of my life. You were my partner, not just someone to fill a spot. I hope you know that. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like you were just waiting to move on without me. But it doesn't really matter now. Of course it matters, Henry. You are important, and I never wanted to hurt you. This was never how I wanted things to turn out. It just happened. Yeah, well, that won't make it any easier for me as I lay alone in bed, knowing the woman I loved for so long is with someone I thought was my friend. You can both go away. I got through work like a zombie that day. During lunch, I made an appointment with a lawyer for the next day. After work, I went to the bank to open separate accounts for myself and for her. It felt wrong since she would leave me for someone who could take care of her, but I knew we would likely split everything evenly. I wanted to avoid paying support, and it would be nice to keep most of our things, but we would see how it all turned out. Either way, we both would be okay. Later that evening, I stopped by the house to pick up some of my stuff. Without thinking much, I drove into the driveway and pressed the button for the garage door. As the door opened, I saw a familiar Mercedes parked where my Malibu used to be. That didn't take long at all. I just stared at the car for a moment. Then I noticed the kitchen door open, and Gina stepped outside. I guess she heard the garage door going up. Our eyes met for a brief second before I backed out of the driveway and drove away. A moment later, my phone rang. It was no surprise who was calling. I let it go to voicemail and listened when I got back to my hotel room. Henry, I'm really sorry you saw that. I wasn't expecting you tonight, and I felt lonely and sad. It wasn't right to have him in the house so soon. I didn't realize that until I saw your face. I truly am sorry, and it won't happen again. Jenna, oh no. I still hoped that Henry would think about what I suggested. I knew he was upset, and that was no surprise. Still, I hoped our love would help him accept our new plan. Maybe he would find some good in it. He could spend more time working on his cars while I was with John, for instance. We could even adjust the schedule to fit the car shows he likes so much. If he was away, he wouldn't really notice that I was gone, but then he came home without warning, and that changed everything. He hadn't told me he was coming, and I felt lonely and sad. I had called John to come over. Nothing more than kissing had happened, and I planned to keep it that way until we sorted things out. Henry was still my husband, and I wanted to honor that. However, Henry probably didn't see it that way. When he opened his garage door and saw John's car there, he likely thought that he had already been replaced. This was going to make it even harder for me to keep both of my men. Henry, she did what? My 18-year-old daughter Natalie yelled from the phone. She asked me to share her with Uncle John. When I said no, she left me for him. I said again. What a terrible person. Nat, come on, she's your mom. I don't care who she thinks she is. My mom wouldn't do that to the man who has loved her for over 20 years. How could she do this? Sweetheart, I know you're angry and you have every right to be. But remember, she's the one who took care of you all those years. She loves you, but she felt she had to make this choice. That's nonsense. Stop defending her, Dad. She loved you and was happy. What else does she want? How could she hurt you like this? Hurt us? I can't stand her right now. I understand, honey. I feel the same way, but honestly, why would I want to be with someone who prefers another person? You're right about that, but it's like she lied for 20 years and wasted your time. I thought that too at first, but I got you out of the situation, so it's totally worth it. I know, but still. And you know, there's always been a part of me that didn't fit in with them because I didn't go to school with them. It's not much, but when they talked about those days, I couldn't join in. I'm not happy about this, but I'll just have to make the best of it. I know you will, Dad, Let me know if you need anything. My friends and I can always take you out for dinner to cheer you up." We shared a laugh, and I felt better. At least I wasn't the only one who thought this was wrong. The next day, I was having lunch when my phone rang. I thought it was Gina again, but it was Scott's name on the screen. "Hey, Henry, how are you?" "That depends on what you know." "We know everything. John and Gina told us last night." "Then you probably know how I'm doing. What do you want?" "First, we want to say sorry about what happened. We had no idea. Gina said you were upset that we kept her original relationship with John a secret. I hope you understand it wasn't meant to hurt you. We thought it was better if you didn't know. If we could go back, we would do it differently. But we were young and thought not knowing would be easier for you." "I get it, Scott. I was upset about that at first, but I might have done the same thing if I were you, so I don't hold any grudge." "Andrea, Bill, and Lisa will be happy to hear that. We know you and Gina were supposed to host this week, but we thought it might be uncomfortable, so we're moving it to Bill and Lisa's house." "That's fine. I won't be going anyway, so it doesn't matter to me where it is." "I thought it might be a bit early, but I didn't want you to feel left out. Just tell us when you're ready to join us again." "I'm sorry, Scott. I guess I wasn't clear. I won't be coming back. Ever. I understand this is hard, but we're your friends, and we won't just let you be alone. We didn't let John handle it alone when Marcy passed away, and we won't let you do it now." "I appreciate your concern, Scott. I really do. I have no bad feelings toward the others, but those are different situations. I just can't be around those two. They hurt me, and I don't want anything to do with them socially ever again. I see that you all are stuck in the middle, and it's not your fault. It's better for me to step away. I don't want to make you choose sides. This whole mess started back in college with the girls, and you three were part of it too. I feel like an outsider, so I should be the one to move on." "I don't know what to say, my friend. I get why you feel this way, but we never thought of you as an outsider. You came to the group later, but you're still one of us." "Thanks for saying that. I really appreciate it. But I can't just sit with them and pretend nothing has happened. I don't blame you guys, but I do blame them. I can't be sure how I would act. If we have a chance to hang out without either of them, I'd think about it, but that's all I can offer for now." "What about Natalie?" "I think one day she will get married and have kids. You'll have to deal with them too, right? What will you do then?" "I hope that's a long way off. By then, maybe I'll be able to handle it. If not, I'll have to find a way." When I hung up, I realized my whole life was about being married to Gina. All my friends were really her friends first, just a few years before I came along. I hadn't really built any friendships on my own. Sure, I had some people at work I called friends, but they were just casual friends. I didn't hang out with them outside of work. I guess it's time to think about changing that, or at least doing something different. Gina and I sat in Bill and Lisa's backyard for our first meetup since everything happened. I was really sad to hear that Henry wasn't coming this week. He might not come again. I really thought that if the three of us could sit down together, we could figure things out and at least stay friends. I mean, back in the day, Marcy, John, and I managed to work things out. So I was hopeful that John, Henry, and I could do the same now. When Andrea, Lisa, and I talked the other night, they seemed to get where I was coming from. I didn't like how things turned out. I was meant to marry John 20 years ago, but that didn't happen. Should I be blamed for trying to fix that now? Should my marriage suffer because of it? That didn't seem fair. Things felt a little strange tonight. It had been years since anyone had seen John and me hold hands or be close to each other. I knew it would take everyone some time to get used to it. Yet, being with John felt easy for me. That made me feel like this was the right choice. Henry finally got my own apartment and kept the storage unit for the Malibu. It made my work a little harder, but I thought it would not last long. I tried to make friends, but it was tougher than I thought. I didn't really work in an office. I worked on job sites where I was in charge of younger guys. They didn't seem very interested in hanging out with me outside of work. Plus, we usually finished our day around 3:30 in the afternoon, so they didn't often stay out right after. They would go home to clean up and then go out later, so there wasn't really a chance to grab drinks after work. So I decided to go out by myself one evening. Maybe I would meet someone new, but I didn't mean just a woman. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I just wanted to find some new friends to spend time with. I went to a couple of places that Gina and I had been to before. I thought I might feel comfortable there and maybe see someone I recognized. They were places with dancing, but the trouble was I was not very social, at least not like that. I was feeling unsure about myself, especially because of Gina. The big moment came around 6 months after my divorce was done. John and Gina had bought my share of the house and took out a loan to pay for it. It upset me a bit that they were living there. I didn't like the idea of John staying in my home. I wanted to sell it so they could buy another place. But Gina really liked that house, maybe more than she liked me. She wanted to keep it, so I agreed to let them buy me out. I was at one of our old favorite spots and having a pretty good time. I was trying to step out of my comfort zone, so I bought drinks for a few women and got a few dances in return. It was all just for fun, nothing serious. Then they walked in, Gina and John looking happy together. Nobody else seemed to notice. But when I saw them walk in, my whole mood changed. Gina looked beautiful, as she always did, and I felt a heavy feeling in my stomach. It made me angry that she still had this kind of effect on me. I couldn't help but feel bitter that they looked so happy while I was still struggling. I hadn't seen Gina since our final divorce meeting, and we hadn't spoken to each other except about divorce matters since I picked up the Malibu car. Now, we only talked through email or text messages, and that was mostly about our daughter, Natalie. I really didn't want to talk to her, so I moved to the back of the club, hoping they would go away from the door and I could leave without being noticed. But of course, they sat down at a table right by the door. I found a quiet spot in the back corner and kept my eyes open for a way to leave. They ordered some drinks, and I watched as John got up, probably to go to the bathroom. He looked around the club and glanced my way, but we didn't make eye contact. I felt sure he didn't notice me. However, with Gina still at the table, I couldn't move. When John came back, he whispered something to Gina. Then they both turned to look at me. I saw Gina start to weave through the crowd towards me. I tried to slip further back, but I hit a wall. She kept her eyes on me, and soon we were right in front of each other. "Why are you avoiding me, Henry?" she asked. "I don't want to talk to you. Isn't that clear?" I replied. "I just wanted to say hello and see how you were. We were married for over 20 years. Aren't we friends anymore?" "No, Gina, we're not. We used to be married, and now we are just two people who share a child. That's all there is. If you had simply stopped loving me and wanted to be free, I might have understood. At least then, I could have respected how you felt and what you chose to do. But the way you ended things hurt me. You said you loved me while trying to get me to share you, and then you picked one of my friends instead. Because of that, I know we will always just be people who were once married. Besides, why do you care? You have the guy you wanted and the life you dreamed of, and you still have your friends. I might as well have disappeared for all it matters to you. That's not true. No matter what you think, Henry, I still love you. I still have feelings for you. I would be open to spending time with you, though I know that's not what you want. You mean a lot to me, Henry, and it hurts to see how things are between us. Is there a chance we could ever be friends? Well, is there a chance that things would change in the past, and you wouldn't have left me for John? That's your answer. I loved you as best as I could for more than 20 years, and it didn't matter to you once you had a chance with John. Now, if you'll excuse me, I really don't like how this place feels right now." I hurried out of the building before my true feelings showed on my face. John tried to talk to me, but my angry look made him hold back. I still loved her, even if I had just said we weren't friends. I didn't see us as friends anymore. None of our other friends called or asked to hang out with me without Gina and John. This made it clear we weren't friends anymore either. They didn't reply to any of my messages or emails. I wasn't just waiting for them to reach out first. Maybe it felt too strange or uncomfortable for them. Or maybe I was only accepted because I was with Gina, and once that ended, I was left out. Whatever the reason, that night I realized that if I stayed in this area, I would never move on. I picked places to go because I felt safe there and had good memories from when Gina and I had been together. I thought those memories would help me, but really they were holding me back. It was time to let go completely and start fresh on my own. I didn't need to make a big move to another state. After all, Natalie was still nearby at school, and I wanted to stay close to her. But I could do that while living in a different part of town from Gina and John. Gina, I felt really sad after talking with Henry. I thought we were still friends. When I saw him at the club, I just went over to say hi and see how he was doing. That was all. He saw me coming and quickly turned away to escape. Did he suddenly act like a kid who thought I had cooties? but it hurt to realize that he didn't even think we were friends. I wanted us to have a good relationship after the divorce. I hadn't lied. I still cared for him. Even now, if he wanted to return, I would have agreed to the shared time plan again. The details would change, of course, since I had married John, but I was still open to it. Henry, however, was not. After Henry left the club, I returned to John. I thought for a moment that Henry might try to hit John as he left, but he didn't. After that, I really didn't feel like going out anymore. It took a few dances and some drinks to lift my spirits again. Henry started looking for a new place to live in an area where I had worked before and liked it. It was about 30 minutes from the neighborhood where my old house was, now lived in by Gina and John. This distance felt just right. The university was a good 90 minutes away. It was close enough for me, but still far enough to feel comfortable. I looked at several houses before I found one that really felt like home. It was a bit smaller than my old 4-bedroom house. It reminded me of the first house Gina and I rented together. This one had 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, including a nice master bathroom. The backyard was a good size, and I thought about adding a pool. I turned one of the bedrooms into a guest room for Nat when she came to visit or for other guests. The 3rd bedroom became my office, and it also had a small fold-out sofa in case I had 2 guests at the same time. The house was on a quiet little street in an older but well-kept neighborhood. My research showed that the Homeowners Association was pretty easygoing compared to others I had heard about, so I made an offer. I closed on the house about 45 days later. The neighborhood was very quiet. I worried that my moving would disturb everyone, but I had no choice. So I bought several packs of muffins and left one at every door on my street. I also wrote a note to explain when I would be moving in and to say sorry for any noise. After my divorce, I felt like I had lost my friends. I thought it would be just me and the movers doing all the work, but, to my surprise, several of my new neighbors came over to help as soon as the truck arrived. I didn't have a lot of things, but luckily, the truck from the furniture store came at the same time. I ordered a bunch of pizzas, and by the end of the day, we not only emptied the truck, but we also unpacked the boxes and put everything away. I thought I would like it here. That night, I went to my first poker game in the neighborhood. Everyone else on the street had been friends for a long time, and they played most weeks. The only reason my house was for sale was because Travis and Rachel, the couple I bought it from, were getting a divorce. Travis had been unfaithful, which Rachel found out. The guys said they didn't know anything about it and would have told Rachel if they did. It was the usual story. He was having an affair with his secretary and decided to leave Rachel when she got pregnant. Rachel moved back to Georgia, and Travis went to live somewhere else after everyone stopped talking to him. Usually the games were on Wednesday nights, but we had a special game tonight to welcome me, the new guy. The guys would play cards while the women did their own thing. They had a rotating schedule. One week they might play Scrabble, and the next week they would meet for a book club. I felt a bit sad that I didn't have a wife to join in, but I knew there was nothing I could do about it. "So what do you do, Henry?" asked Rick. He was shorter than the others, but very strong. I could see his muscles were big. "Right now, I work as a project manager for an electrical company. I am also a licensed electrician, plumber, and general contractor," I replied. Ed jumped in. "We could really use someone like you around here." The other guys nodded their heads in agreement. "How do you mean?" I asked, curious. "We have a kind of barter system on this street," Bart explained. "Ed is a financial planner, so he takes care of our investment accounts. I work as a regional supervisor for H&R Block, so I help with everyone's tax returns. Rick owns a few gyms and works as a personal trainer, which means he gives us free gym memberships and helps us stay fit. Rob is the manager at the arena, so he helps us get tickets to shows and games when he can. We all work together without charging each other. The only costs we have to cover are the small fees that come up, like filing fees or extra charges. If you want to join us, you could help with small home repairs. We're not looking for big projects, just things like a dripping faucet or a broken light switch. What do you think?" "Sure," I said. "What about the other 2 houses on the street?" "The house on the other corner belongs to the Monroes," Ed replied. "They are an older couple. The man is a retired Navy sailor, but he has bad arthritis. They might need your help the most. We include them in our group mainly for Miss Ruth's cooking and baking more than anything else. They usually have a neighborhood dinner about once a month. You will probably meet their daughter soon. We call her the Ice Queen." The Ice Queen? What's that about? You'll find out. Just wait. The other people are the Walkers, Rob added. They've lived here for about 5 years. They don't really talk to us much. You might see them wave as they drive by, but that's it. They're also older. We played a few rounds of cards, and then I asked my next question. Is there anything I should know about you all? Like what? Bart asked. Oh, just the usual stuff. Are any of you into strange beliefs or rituals, or do you hate popular music? Nothing like that, Rick replied. But if we think of anything strange, we'll tell you at the next dinner. One of the wives in the other room laughed, but I didn't catch her name. Ha! You wish! It was a really great night, and I thought I had found the friends I had been looking for. Natalie, I was still pretty mad at my mom, but I was happy that my dad had moved on with his life. I think he might have thought about my mom's new boyfriend. For just a moment. I talked to my dad at least once a week, sometimes more. We had always been close, and now we seemed even closer. I planned to visit his new home, but I wanted to give him time to settle in first. I had also met a guy named Michael, and I was spending a lot of time with him too. My mom tried to call me a lot, but I often didn't want to talk to her, so I let it go to voicemail. When I did answer, it usually turned into yelling and name-calling, which made me less likely to answer next time. Basically, she wanted me to agree with her new life and accept her marriage to my old Uncle John. I told her right then that it wasn't going to happen. Maybe one day, but for now, he didn't matter to me. If she wanted to spend time with me, it would be just the two of us. She was my mother, and I wanted to be there for her, but I didn't owe him anything. If he had kept quiet, my parents would still be together. Henry, the next week, I worked hard during the day and spent my evenings getting used to the house. I moved some things around in the kitchen to make it easier to use, but I unpacked everything else without too much trouble. The following Saturday morning, I walked 2 doors down to meet the Monroe family. I knocked gently on the door, and soon it opened to reveal a couple I guessed was Mr. and Mrs. Monroe. Yes? The woman asked. Good morning, I'm Henry Weston. I just moved in 2 doors down and wanted to say hello. Oh, come in, come in. We saw the truck and a lot of people moving around down there. How nice of you to stop by. Please have a seat, one of them said. We talked for a few minutes. Richard had served in the Navy for 30 years, starting right after high school. Sadly, health issues made him retire. He and his wife had married when he first joined, and they were getting close to their 45th wedding anniversary. They had their only child in their 30s, a daughter named Taylor. They showed me her pictures hanging on the wall. She had long, straight black hair, and I told them my honest opinion. She's beautiful. Do you see her often? Several times a month, actually. She teaches and coaches volleyball at the high school. She visits us quite a lot. And she's single. Are you a single man, Mr. Weston? I smiled at her clear wish to matchmake. Yes, well, I got divorced about a year ago. That seemed to make her happy. I finally decided to help out my neighbors as part of a local trading agreement. They showed me some things around their house that needed fixing. There was a leaking faucet in the bathroom and some small holes in the walls. Inside, there were just a few small issues, but outside, there were bigger problems like pieces of siding coming loose, broken bricks, and other signs that the house hadn't been cared for in a while. None of it was too hard for me to fix, but it would take some time. I got my tools and started working on the leaky faucet. While I was fixing it, I discovered some other problems with the pipes and the sink. Soon I had to turn off the water and take apart the whole setup. While I was in the middle of this, I saw their daughter come by for a visit. She turned the corner and saw me fixing her parents' bathroom. "Who are you?" she asked, and her voice sounded even less friendly than her words. My name is Henry. Make sure to clean up after yourself. And I want an itemized bill to be sure you're not cheating an older couple. Understand? Her harsh tone took me by surprise, and I could only nod. As she walked away, I went back to my work. She definitely had a cold vibe, but still, I couldn't help but notice her. The pictures were right. She was very pretty. Her black hair fell straight down and framed her shoulders. She looked fit, with a body that was fuller, which I really like. Being thin is popular, but it's not really my style. Gina was very much like that, too. I could hear her talking to her parents from far away. Mom, Dad, I've told you not to hire people for repairs without asking me first. You are asking to be taken advantage of. This guy has the bathroom all messed up because of a leaky faucet. Has he even said what he is doing?" "It's okay, dear," Miss Ruth said. "We didn't hire him. He's our new neighbor. He moved into the Olsons' old house. He's only charging for supplies." "Oh, like he can't charge you too much for those. Don't pay him until I can check everything. He might break something on purpose just to charge you again." At that point, they walked away, and I went back to my work. About an hour later, Miss Ruth came to see me. "I'm really sorry about how Taylor acted." "It's fine, ma'am. She was just trying to help you." "Still, it wasn't right for her to talk to you that way." "She is a really nice girl, but I think she has been this way since her divorce 3 years ago." "What happened?" "I'm not exactly sure. I just know that he cheated on her. She never told us everything. I think she feels embarrassed about it. But she was the one who divorced him, not the other way around. By the way, dinner is at 6 p.m. Do you think you will be finished by then?" "Of course. Will your daughter be there?" Honestly, I had enough of the cold woman, and I was already thinking of reasons to skip dinner if she came. But Miss Ruth thought I was asking about her with hope. Sadly, she had to go. Maybe next time. Taylor men were the worst. That was all there was to it. They were liars, con artists, or cheaters. My ex-husband, Jimmy, managed to be all three at once. I met him in my last year at the University of Florida. I was at college on a volleyball scholarship, studying to be a teacher and getting my coaching certification. I fell for Jimmy, and I thought we would get married soon after we graduated. But it ended up being 3 years later. Jimmy said he wasn't ready to settle down, but he told me he loved me and was committed to me, and I trusted him. After we graduated, Jimmy found a good job with a local woman named Margaret Healy. She was a widow and nearly 60 years old. After her husband passed away, she took over his businesses. Jimmy worked closely with her and claimed he was learning how to run the business so he could take it over someday. This job meant long hours and late nights, but I believed he was working hard for our future. I met Margaret a few times, and she called him the son she never had. In the meantime, I was teaching and coaching nearby, living my dream too. We were even talking about starting our family. I thought we had a perfect life, but I was wrong. One weekend, my team was going to play in a tournament in Orlando. We left on Friday night and were supposed to be back on Sunday evening. We went as planned and played our games on Saturday. However, strong winds and heavy rain from a hurricane were coming, so they had to cancel the matches on Sunday. Since the area was being evacuated for safety, we got on the bus and drove back to Tampa. I tried to call Jimmy, but I only got his voicemail, so I guess he didn't know I was coming. When I got home, I found my husband Jimmy with his boss, her daughter, and their secretary in our bedroom. The secretary seemed to be leading them. I walked in at a shocking moment that I didn't expect. He was enjoying every moment of it. I was shocked. I'm not someone who is easily offended. I used to have fun and liked trying new things, but this was my husband of 7 years being hurt by 3 women while he looked happy. I managed to take some pictures on my phone, and then I started the process to get a divorce. I found out that Jimmy had been involved with Margaret and her daughter Miranda since he started his job. The baby that Miranda had 2 years ago was also Jimmy's. It wasn't an accident. They had asked him to have a child for her, and he agreed to do it without protection until she got pregnant. To make matters worse, most of our male friends knew what Jimmy was doing and helped him keep it a secret. This situation even ended some other marriages, too. Jimmy had promised his friends good jobs if they stayed quiet, but he really couldn't offer any jobs. Now his friends' wives didn't trust them anymore. I was ready to take everyone to court, but Mrs. Healy offered me a lot of money to keep quiet and not to sue. She also paid for my divorce and helped me move back to California. Plus, she gave me money to help me live until I found a job. From what I've heard, not much has changed back there, except that Jimmy married Miranda. He got rich and ended up with people just like him, and I got a ticket out of town, along with some serious trust and anger problems. That doesn't seem fair. So anyway, the guy who was working in my parents' bathroom looked pretty good, but I was sure there was something bad about him. He was a man after all, and I wasn't going to fall for that again. Henry, the next day, I was invited to Ed and Kathy's for dinner. I was excited to spend time with them one-on-one instead of in a big group. Kathy was a very nice woman, even if she wasn't the most beautiful. She had messy blonde hair and some scars on her face from bad acne when she was younger. She was a bit chubby, but not too much. She did have big boobs and a nice figure, but what mattered most was how much she and Ed loved each other. I mentioned that I spent yesterday at the Monroes fixing their bathroom. "Did you meet the Ice Queen?" Ed asked. "Edward, I've told you not to call her that," Kathy said quickly. "It's not kind." "Neither is she," Ed replied. "Yeah, I met her," I said. "She came over to visit her parents while I was working." "And what did she say?" Ed asked, glancing at Kathy. It seemed like he was sure Taylor had done something mean and was eager to show everyone she deserved that label. "She told me to make sure I cleaned everything up and not to cheat her parents. Then she got mad at them for hiring someone like me, saying I might take advantage of them and break things on purpose." Ed had a pleased smile, but Kathy was quick to respond. "I never said she was a nice person. What I mean is that by talking about her like that, you aren't any better." "What do you guys really know about her?" I asked. "I find it hard to believe such nice people could raise someone so harsh. There has to be more to the story." Kathy shared what they knew. "She was married and lived in Florida until about 3 years ago. She got divorced and moved back here. Maybe she's still upset about her divorce, or maybe she just acts unfriendly. We've never seen her behave any other way, but we didn't know her before. We all tried inviting her to some neighborhood gatherings when she first arrived, but she never said yes," Ed said. "So we stopped asking." "It's a shame," I replied. "She's a very attractive woman. When I saw her picture on the wall, I thought she looked interesting. I hoped you all were exaggerating about the Ice Queen, but I got my answer quickly." The next weekend, Natalie and her roommate, Patrice, came to visit. Patrice was cute, but nothing too special in looks. She had wavy brown hair that reached her shoulders and a slim figure. She had a small chest and narrow hips, with nice legs that showed from the white denim skirt she wore. We spent the day at the mall, and I bought some things for both girls. Nat told me that Patrice's parents were just getting by with her college costs, so new clothes were not in their budget. I could afford it, so I thought, why not? We had lunch at the food court and then dinner at Olive Garden because Patrice asked for it. After we got home, we watched a movie on pay-per-view and then got ready for bed. The guest room had a big bed, so the girls could have shared it if they wanted, but Patrice chose to sleep on the fold-out bed in my office. On Sunday, I took the girls out for brunch, and then we spent the rest of the day just talking. Natalie, as she often did, took the chance to encourage me to start dating. She mentioned that there were some graduate students and even a few professors at the university who were single and might be nice matches. I thanked her for her concern, but told her I wasn't interested in dating right now. At the poker game the next week, I learned that my visit from Natalie and Patrice had caught everyone's attention. "So, Henry," Bart said with a grin, "you had a couple of young ladies at your place over the weekend. Enjoying being single, huh?" "Bart," I replied with a smile, "please don't call my daughter a young lady like that, at least not in front of me. And the other one was her college roommate." Bart's face turned a bit red, and he quickly said sorry. I told him it was okay. 2 weeks later, we had our monthly neighborhood dinner at the Monroes' house. Miss Ruth sure knew how to cook, and the food was really delicious. Everybody in the neighborhood liked to have them in the trading events. Miss Ruth had a special way of setting up the seating. She liked to keep husbands and wives apart, making sure to place people boy, girl. She changed the seats every month. This was her way of making sure everyone got along and felt equal. Mr. Monroe sat at the head of the table, and Miss Ruth was at the other end. I found myself between Ed's wife, Kathy, and Bart's wife, Jennifer. Jennifer was a tall and slim Hispanic woman. She was pretty, but she wore a lot of makeup. I thought she might be even prettier without so much on her face, but I had never seen her that way. She was very slim and didn't have much of a chest or curves. But what mattered most was that she loved Bart completely. It was clear that all the couples on our street were deeply devoted to each other. I found myself wondering how the last people who lived in my house had gotten inside. I felt a little sad that Taylor wasn't there. I knew that none of the couples liked her much, but I also thought they never really got to know her. All they saw was the mean girl still upset about her divorce 3 years ago. But there was something about her that attracted me. I couldn't quite explain it. I sensed there was something special about her, if only someone could look past all the anger and hurt. Taylori usually stayed away from my mom's monthly gatherings with the couples in her neighborhood. The last one was just last week. She treated all of them like her own kids and loved cooking for them. But I didn't enjoy being there during those parties. I guess there was nothing wrong with the people around me. I just found it hard to be near all those happy couples when my own love life was a mess. Whenever I saw a man, especially if he was married, I couldn't help but think he might be unfaithful. It was really annoying because I wanted to find someone to marry again and maybe have a couple of kids. But I knew my time to have kids was running out. I was trying to change my way of thinking, but I had been hurt so badly by what Jimmy did that it was very hard. I had to admit that I liked this guy named Henry a little. We had met a few times and he seemed nice. If my parents were right, he was just what I needed, but I also knew he was divorced, and I wasn't sure why. I thought it might mean he had been unfaithful to his wife. I didn't want to go through that again. They say once a cheater, always a cheater. Last night I stayed at my parents' house. We watched a movie and some TV, so I just slept in their guest room. But this morning, when I tried to leave for work, my car wouldn't start. "Mom, can I use your car today? Mine won't start, and I'm going to be late for work." "Of course, dear. We don't have any plans today." "Thanks. I'll come back after work to take care of it." Henry, the phone rang early, and I was surprised to hear Miss Ruth's voice. "Henry, I'm really sorry to wake you up so early, but I wanted to talk to you before you went to work." "No problem, Miss Ruth. I'm off today and was already awake. What do you need this morning?" "You know how to fix cars, right?" "A little, yes, ma'am. I know more about building things than fixing them, but I can help a little." "Are you having car trouble?" I asked. "It's not my car, it's Taylor's. Her car won't start. She borrowed mine so she could get to work, and I was hoping you could check it out." "Do you have the keys to her car?" I asked. "Yes, we have her spare key." "I'll come down and take a look," I said. Since I had a few days off before my next work project started, this was a good time for a car to have issues. I had told Miss Ruth I wasn't an expert at fixing cars, but it didn't take me long to find the problem. It was the alternator. I felt happy about helping Taylor. I really liked her. Sure, she was pretty, but it was more than just that. I felt a special energy whenever she walked into the same room as me. I wondered if she felt it too. I really wanted to ask her out, but she seemed distant. Still, I was determined to get past her tough outside. I saw this as a perfect chance to make a move. I spent the next few hours working on the car. I even had to drive to the dealership to get a new alternator since the auto parts store didn't have it. I finished fixing it just an hour before Taylor came back. "Taylor, Mom, I'm back. Thanks for letting me use the car." I walked into the house, said hi to Mom and Dad, and then started looking for a number to call a tow service. I wanted to get my car taken to the mechanic. After that, I planned to rent a car, but Mom stopped me. "You don't need to do that, dear. Your car is fixed." "My car fixed itself while I was away? Come on, Mom. I need to get this sorted before everything closes." "No, dear, there was no magic. I asked Henry to help me with my car, and he took care of everything. Wow! That was really kind of him, especially since I hadn't been very nice to him before. I went to my car, and it started right away. Then, I walked down to his house and knocked on the door. When he opened it, he wasn't wearing a shirt and looked like he had been working out. I had to say, he looked good. He was strong, but not too big. I felt a little spark more than just a little, and I realized I was starting to like him. "Hi, Taylor. How are you today? How was work?" His voice surprised me. He sounded happy to see me and really wanted to know about my day. This was very different from how I usually talk to him. Why was he being so nice? "Well, it was fine, Henry. Thank you for asking. My mom told me you fixed my car. I wanted to thank you for doing that and see what I owe you." "I was happy to help," he said. "I liked helping you out. You don't need to pay me." "I still feel like I should give you something. What was wrong with it?" "There were just some loose wires. It happens sometimes, but everything is tight now. You shouldn't have any more issues." "Thank you. I'm glad it was a simple fix. I hope it wasn't too much work. I really appreciate it." "You're welcome. It was a pleasure to help." He seemed truly happy to solve my problem. It felt like he liked me, even though I didn't give him a reason to. I found myself smiling and feeling good as I walked back to my parents' house. Mom saw me smiling. "You look happy, my dear." I didn't want to tell her that my good mood was mostly because I had just talked to Henry and saw him without a shirt. "Oh, I'm just glad it was only a few loose wires and nothing serious." "Is that what he said?" "Yeah, why?" "Sweetheart, he spent the whole day fixing a part in your engine. Your dad says that repair costs about $400. He told you it was just the wires because he didn't want you to pay him. I don't get it. He didn't mention any parts. Why wouldn't he let me pay him? Mom grinned widely and looked at me like I was missing something obvious. Why do you think, honey? Suddenly, my smile grew even bigger. Gina had found a nice routine with John. We got married soon after my divorce from Henry was done, and I felt happy. But here's the thing. I didn't feel happier, and that surprised me. Even though I loved John a lot, I thought being married to him would be even better than being married to Henry. But I found out it wasn't. It wasn't worse, just different. We still had our weekly barbecues with Scott, Andrea, Bill, and Lisa. Life went on in much the same way with two big changes, our kids. At least Natalie still talks to me sometimes, even if it's often with angry words. Savannah hasn't spoken to John since she found out about everything. She only told him not to talk to her anymore. John tries to reach out to her from time to time, but she hasn't replied. This was a result we didn't expect. Marcy was already gone, so it's not like John left her for me, but Savannah acts as if he did. And because she's not talking to us, we don't know what's really bothering her. Still, John and I tried our best to focus on ourselves. The barbecues were always fun and relaxed. The other couples didn't seem upset about what we'd done. My love life wasn't as exciting as it had been with Henry, but that made sense because of our ages. Henry had years to learn what I liked. The important thing is that we were happy together. I can't say for sure that I would choose the same path if I could see the future, but I love him, and we're trying to make the best of things. Henry, it was a Sunday, and the women in our neighborhood were having a night out, so the guys decided to do something too. We started by going bowling and then had some dinner. Finally, we went to a club where a local band was playing. There was a dance floor, but we didn't plan to dance. The wives wouldn't be happy if any of us danced with another woman, and I wasn't too keen on dancing anyway. Well, that was how things were done these days. The night went on, and the band played pretty well. We couldn't help but notice some of the women dancing, but that was the most trouble we got into. Rick spotted her first. "Isn't that the ice queen in that booth?" he said. He pointed to a dark corner near the stage. To my surprise, it was Taylor sitting there all by herself. She looked so pretty. I thought she might be on a date waiting for her partner to get drinks, and I felt a little sad, but I tried not to show it. "That makes sense, since she usually only goes out at night," Bart joked. Everyone except me laughed. "I heard her beliefs stop her from having fun," Ed added. More laughter followed. "I bet she's drinking a Bloody Mary," Rob said. I heard more laughter and I started to feel a bit annoyed, but I didn't say anything. Then, an attractive blonde woman came and sat in the chair next to Taylor. Suddenly, my mood improved. She wasn't on a date. She was with a friend. Where Taylor had been looking at her phone before, she was now chatting happily with her friend. As I watched them, two guys walked up to their table and asked them to dance. The blonde girl quickly stood up and took one of the guys' hands, but Taylor calmly shook her head and I could see her say, "No, thank you." The guy looked disappointed but walked away. I watched this happen 2 or 3 more times before people stopped asking Taylor to dance and started paying more attention to her friend. After about 90 minutes, I had drunk a few sodas. I don't like alcohol, so it was just Diet Cola for me. I spent the night mostly watching the band, but I found myself often looking at Taylor. I thought she was really pretty. I watched as her friend danced with a guy on the floor. Then, a guy who looked tough and seemed to have a drink in him came over to Taylor. He clearly wanted her to dance, but she politely said no. This guy got upset and started yelling at her. I quickly got up and walked over to them. As I got closer, I could hear what he was saying. "With your face buried in that phone all night. This is a dance club. You should dance." "Thanks for the offer, but I'm just here to hang out with a friend," Taylor replied. He tried to grab her hand and pull her up from the seat, but she didn't want to go. She struggled to get her hand free, but he was holding on tight. "Come on, you'll have fun once you join in," he said. "Really, I'm not interested. Please leave me alone," she insisted. I finally stepped in. "Hey, buddy," she said. "She doesn't want to dance. Why don't you go somewhere else?" "This is a free country, buddy, and I'll stay right here. It's none of your business." I looked over at Taylor and gave her a wink and a smile when our eyes met. Her bright smile made me feel good. "You're right about that. Enjoy your seat." Then I turned to her. "Taylor, would you like to dance?" "I would, Henry." Thank you. She slid out of the booth since the rude guy wouldn't move. I took her hand and led her to the dance floor. I looked back at the guys, and the surprised looks on their faces were great. Suddenly, the drunken guy didn't seem so interested in that seat anymore. The song was at a nice pace, but we danced like it was a slow song, just not too close. She put her hands around my neck and I put mine around her back. We looked into each other's eyes. So it seems you're always saving me, I said. You're worth saving, I replied. I could feel her shiver a little when I said that, but in a good way, like it made her happy. Thanks for the nice words. It's funny that you are always the one to save me. I wonder why that is. I gazed into her eyes again. I think it's fate, I said. I felt a strong connection between us. I couldn't remember feeling this way with Gina, even after 20 years. It felt special, almost magical, and I wanted to go with it. Our eyes stayed locked, and I pulled her closer. I leaned in, and she leaned in too. Our lips touched softly. When our tongues brushed ever so lightly, it felt like my heart was lighting up inside me. As I pulled her closer, I felt her arms wrapped tightly around my neck. The guys were surprised when I brought Taylor to the dance floor. I can only imagine how they looked now. The kiss was soft, but it lasted a long time. When we finally pulled away, I saw her friend watching us, her face filled with shock. Taylor rested her head on my shoulder. We kept dancing, moving to the music regardless of the song's speed, until I finally spoke up. Hey, did you drive here or did your friend? She drove. She picked me up at my place. Why? I want to take you home. I realized that sounded a bit wrong, so I quickly tried to fix it. What I mean is, I want you to come home with me. That didn't help much. I mean, can I give you a ride home? She smiled and giggled a little as I tried to get my words straight. I'd like that. I'm ready to go whenever you are. Let me tell Karen I'm leaving. While she did that, I went to my table to tell the guys I was heading out. They all looked a bit shy. Henry, Ed said, we're sorry about what we said. If we had known you and her were together, we wouldn't have brought it up. No worries, guys, it's fine. But if I hear anyone call her Ice Queen again, we might need to talk. See you later. Taylori have no idea why everything suddenly fell into place for me. Sorry for the mixed words. But I was really happy about what happened. I almost didn't go out with Karen tonight, and now look at us. I was so thrilled that I almost wanted to thank that drunk guy for bringing Henry to help me. Looks like you met someone, Karen said as I walked up to her. He's really cute. That's him, Karen. The guy I told you about. You mean the guy who lives next to your parents? Are you serious? What are the chances of that happening? I'm not sure, but he wants to drive me home. Are you going to be okay here on your own? Of course. I have some other friends here to hang out with, and I want to hear all about it later. All right, see you at work tomorrow. I hurried to catch up with Henry, taking his hand as we met. I felt a little jolt when we touched. It made me feel like a schoolgirl on her first date. I almost wanted to laugh and talk about being a couple. He opened the door to his truck and helped me get in. I noticed it was his work truck, and I was impressed with how clean and nice it looked inside. I wished he had a bench seat. Do they even make those anymore? So I could sit right next to him. He started driving slowly and took us onto the road. I sat with my hands in my lap, unsure of what to do with them. Then he reached over and took my left hand in his right hand. He held it while we drove, like it was the most normal thing to do, and I loved it. One thing that frustrated me about Jimmy was how easily he followed others. It left him open to the Healy's influence, and it got on my nerves sometimes. I liked that Henry was confident and took charge. As we drove, I felt I should say something to break the quiet. Thanks again for handling that guy for me. He was really rude. Well, when a beautiful woman like you is around, some men act foolish. In that moment, I felt a rush of emotions. How does he always know just what to say? I wondered if he noticed how he was making me feel. Can I ask you something personal, Taylor? His voice made me look at him instead of the ground. I thought about what secret I might share, knowing I would tell him anything. Of course, Henry. Do you like ice cream? That question took me by surprise, but I decided to go with it. Yes, I do. He smiled, and soon we were parked in front of Baskin-Robbins. I reached to open the door, but he stopped me. Wait, let me do that. I tried to seem calm, but inside I was really happy. Had I found a nice guy who knew how to be kind? And did he like me? I smiled as he opened my door and took my hand to help me out of the truck. We went inside and each got an ice cream cone. We mostly ate in silence, but he kept looking into my eyes. When we finished, he walked me back to my apartment and stopped at my door. Even though we had started the evening apart, I thought of this as our first date, and the ends of first dates can feel a bit strange. But I was wrong about that too. As soon as we reached my door, he gently pulled me close to him. Our bodies touched, and I thought he might kiss me again, but he didn't yet. I could tell he wanted to. I'm leaving in the morning for a job out of town. I'll be gone all week and won't be back until next weekend. Can I take you out again when I return? I looked into his warm brown eyes. I could easily get lost in them if I wasn't careful, but I wasn't worried about that. Yes, Henry, I would like that. We'll talk when you're back and make a plan. Sounds good, but I don't like waiting. He pulled me close and we kissed again. It made me wish for a little fun tonight. The kiss lingered for a few minutes, but he let go too soon. I didn't want to seem too eager, even though I wanted him to come inside. I decided that would be too fast. Thanks for a nice time, Henry. I unlocked my door and went inside. Henry, as I drove, my truck kept moving into the other lane. Luckily, the road wasn't busy. I struggled to focus because my mind kept going back to Taylor. I really liked her, and it seemed like she felt the same way. That was strange, of course, because we had never really gone out on a date before tonight, and this was really just part of one. I got back to the house without any trouble, but as I walked in, it felt very empty. It felt even more alone than it had since my divorce was final. I was never very good at being single. I was on my own for only a couple of years before I met Gina. It was mostly a lonely time for me. I was not the kind of guy who went out and met people at clubs. I didn't go to college. I went straight into working with my hands after high school, just like my dad did. Dad passed away in a construction accident about 10 years ago. Mom went back to Massachusetts to stay with my grandparents after that. We still talk on the phone a lot. I had an early morning, so I finished my packing for the week and then crawled into bed. I still missed Gina. I missed having her around, sharing a bed, waking up together, and enjoying breakfast side by side. I once heard a saying that fits me well: born married. It means I feel incomplete without a steady partner in my life. For a long time, when I felt very alone, I would think of Gina. We had been together for so long that it felt natural. But tonight, as I got into bed, I found myself thinking about Taylor instead. I wished she was there with me. Taylor, this week felt like it lasted forever. I had such a great time with Henry last Sunday night, and I really felt a bond with him. But then he had to leave town. We talked on the phone a few times while he was away, but it just wasn't the same as being together and going out. He had been working a lot and was really tired, so we kept things short. When I met Jimmy in Florida, I hadn't been in many relationships. I had a few crushes in high school, but nothing serious. I never thought I would meet someone special. But with Jimmy, as things got serious, I realized it was love because I had never felt this way about anyone else. But when Henry held me in his arms that night, I understood that what I felt for him was even stronger. It wasn't just in my heart. With Jimmy, my heart fluttered. With Henry, my whole body felt alive. Last night, I went to my parents' house waiting for Henry to come back from work. I knew he would be home late or early in the morning. It was already getting late in the morning. My mom was cooking eggs, bacon, and toast. "Honey," my mom asked, "can you go get the newspaper?" "Sure, Mom." I walked slowly down the path when I saw a car I hadn't noticed before turn onto our street. It was a newer sedan, but to me, they all looked the same. I thought Henry could probably tell me what kind it was. When his name popped into my head, I looked over at his house just as the strange car parked in his driveway. Now I was really curious. The car door opened, and a very pretty young woman, maybe around 20, stepped out. I did not like this at all. When I saw her take a small suitcase from the trunk, I felt even worse. That meant she was going to stay for the weekend. I spotted Henry walking from his house. I quickly ducked behind a bush in Mom's yard so he wouldn't see me watching. The young woman walked over to him, put down her suitcase, and gave him a big hug and a quick kiss. Then he picked up her suitcase, took her hand, and they went into his house. I knew it. They always act the same way. Miss Ruthie wondered why Taylor was taking so long to get the newspaper. I almost went outside to check when she burst through the front door, shaking the whole house as she came in. I thought my pretty plates would fall, but they stayed in place. "That man is unbelievable," she shouted loudly. "Oh no, what now?" I could see she was about to cry, but there was also a strong anger in her. I hadn't seen her like this since her divorce. She had been upset and mad since then, but not like this. This was different. It had to be about Henry. "What's wrong, dear? What happened?" I knew it was too good to be true. I just knew it. "Taylor, what do you mean?" "I'm talking about that teenage girl who just went to Henry's house for the weekend. I just saw her drive in with her little blue car like she owns the place. She gave him a big kiss and hug before they went inside. They're probably up to something right now." As soon as she mentioned the little blue car, I realized she was mistaken, but I wanted to tease her a bit for jumping to conclusions. "Was she a brunette with hair that goes just past her shoulders?" Taylor quickly turned to look at me. If looks could hurt, I'd be in trouble. "Yes, that's exactly who it was. Do you know her?" "Oh yes, that's Natalie. We've met her a couple of times. She's really nice." "And you never thought to tell me that Henry is with someone much younger?" "Well, I didn't know until last weekend that I should say anything about her, and it just slipped my mind this week. She hasn't come around in a few weeks." "What could he possibly see in a woman so much younger?" I guess it's a silly question. He sees someone young and attractive, and I can't compete with that at my age. But I bet he's spending a lot of money on her. Yes, he spends quite a lot. He bought her that car and is even paying for her school. But she cares for him a lot. I doubt that. I think she only cares about his money. I don't understand why he can't see that. Oh, he knows how much money matters to her, and he gives it to her happily. I'm sure he does, but it's probably for other reasons, but it doesn't matter anymore. He's not my concern anymore. When I looked at Taylor, I could see she was about to cry. It was time to end my little tease. Well, Taylor, you really can't blame him. That's what good dads do. I watched her closely as I shared the truth. Her relief was clear on her face and in her body. She looked so relieved that tears almost spilled from her eyes. You mean, that's his daughter? Yes, sweetie. I'm sure you two will get along well. She's just like him. Come on, let's go sit and eat. You know, you could have told me that sooner. And miss that fun chat? No way. I took her hand and led her to the table. I made her a plate of food and poured a small glass of orange juice. I set them in front of her. I wish I knew why he got divorced, Taylor said. I'm scared it was something he did. Well, why don't you just ask him? Why don't you call and invite them over for dinner tonight? You two could have a nice chat. Do you think he would share with me? Of course he would. He has feelings for you. In fact, he even told me. But I'm just an old lady with a bit of wisdom. She paused her meal and gave me a surprised look. He told you about his divorce? Please tell me, Mom. I'm sorry, sweetie, but that's his story to tell. You should talk to him about it. Just call him. Henry almost forgot Nat was coming to visit this weekend, but I'm always glad to see her. I did let her know I might go out sometime this weekend. Is it with a girl? She asked, smiling and giving me a wink. If I go out, yes, it will be with a girl. Well, a woman. Good for you, Dad. It's about time you get out there. Just then, the phone rang. Hello? Henry, it's Taylor. Hi. I was just about to call you to see when we could meet. Actually, that's why I was calling. Mom wants to know if you and your daughter would like to come over for dinner tonight, as long as you don't have other plans. I'll ask my boss. I turned to Natalie. Hey, Nat, do you want to have dinner at Miss Ruth's tonight? Of course. I never say no to dinner from the best cook around. Looks like we'll be there, but I was hoping I could see you before dinner. This way, you get to spend some time with Natalie. Plus, I need to finish a few things before I can meet you. Taylor, all right. I admit I was being a bit silly, but I really wanted a new outfit, something fresh that nobody had seen before. I didn't want anything too revealing, just something nice, even if I was the only one who knew it was new. I headed to the mall and finally found what I wanted in a small boutique near Macy's. It fit well and showed off my curves, but it also did a good job of hiding my smaller chest. For some reason, I suddenly thought about the time when Henry was kissing me and I felt him close. It made me feel warm inside. After that, I went to the mall to the salon. I got my hair washed, conditioned, and trimmed. Then I went to Ulta to buy some new makeup. I knew I didn't really need to do all this, but I really wanted to. I went back to my mom and dad's house and helped my mom a bit. Finally, I jumped into the shower to get ready. Henry took Natalie out for lunch, and then we went to see a movie. I was just passing the time. I told Natalie about the last couple of weeks with Taylor, starting with the car. So you spent all day fixing her car and even paid for the part, but you didn't tell her. How will she know what you did? It doesn't matter if she knows everything, Nat. She knows I fixed it, but I did it for me because I wanted to help her. I know it might sound odd. Your generation loves to share everything online, even what you had for breakfast. But some people do nice things just to feel good inside. They don't want a lot of attention. Like those who give money to charity but then tell everyone about it. I can't help but wonder if they really want to help, or if they just want to make themselves look good. I understand what you mean, but I still wish she knew about the kind thing you did for her, she said. On our way home, I grabbed a bottle of wine and some flowers. Then we got ready for dinner. You've never dressed up for dinner at Grandma Ruth's before? She teased. She knew exactly why I was dressing up, so I just stuck my tongue out at her playfully. At 5:56 p.m., we walked out of my house and headed to Ruth and Richard's place. I was about to ring the doorbell when the door swung open. Taylor was there waiting for us. We stepped inside, and Miss Ruth came toward us with a smile. I gave her a quick kiss on the cheek and passed her the wine. Then I introduced my daughter to the new woman in my life. "Natalie," Miss Ruth said, "can you help me in the kitchen, please?" "Sure, Grandma Ruth." Taylor and I stayed still until they turned the corner. Then we looked at each other. I handed her the flowers and gently kissed her on the lips. "You look even more beautiful today. Did you get your hair done?" "It looks nice. I missed you while I was away." "I missed you too, and thanks for noticing. You look good as well. Let's go out on the deck. I want to talk for a bit." I nodded, and she took my hand and led me outside. As we walked out, I looked back at the kitchen and saw that both Natalie and Miss Ruth were smiling widely. It seemed they liked what they saw. We sat in a couple of deck chairs close enough to hold hands. "How was your job this week?" I asked. It was good after a while. At first, we had some problems with getting the right permits and finding enough staff, but we solved them quickly. It was a rushed job, and we were paid extra for the long hours. Still, working 12 hours is tiring no matter how much you earn. "That sounds exhausting, but I'm really glad you're back," she said. She paused for a moment, looking like she was thinking hard about what to say next. "Henry, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure, Taylor. You can ask me anything, anytime. I'll always answer you truthfully." "I'm sorry to bring this up, but I really want to know, why did you and your wife get divorced?" "Wow, that's a really personal question," I replied, shifting in my chair. "How about this? I'll share my story if you share yours." "Okay, it's a deal." "Well, to put it simply, my wife left me for another man." "Do you know why she did that?" I had a feeling she was trying to find out if I did something wrong to push Gina away. Basically, if I had cheated, hurt her, or done anything wrong that made Gina leave me, I would understand why. I told her everything, starting from John and Gina's college romance to the final divorce, and how I decided to move away to begin a new life. "Do you know how they're doing? Does she wish things were different?" "As far as I know, they are doing okay. I haven't heard anything bad, but I'd rather not think about them, and Nat understands that. I can't believe she would leave a good marriage. I mean, if you both were having problems, maybe I would understand, but from your side, everything seemed great. If she was unhappy, she never talked to me about it." Wow, that was not a nice thing to do. "But look on the bright side. If she hadn't left, you wouldn't be here with me now." "You know, I thought the same thing." "All right, your turn." I listened in surprise as she shared how her marriage to Jimmy came to an end. It's no surprise that she feels angry and has a hard time trusting men in relationships. He had done something really hurtful to her. 3 years later, it still hurt. I gently held her hand and looked into her eyes, speaking softly. "I'm sorry for what he did, Taylor. Not all of us are like that." She turned to me, and I hoped she looked at me with kindness. I could see she was trying not to cry. "I know that now, Henry. You've shown me. Thank you." Just then, Natalie's voice came from behind us. "Miss Taylor, Dad, dinner's ready." We stood up and went inside. Natalie, I felt so happy seeing my dad with someone new. He had talked about Miss Taylor a few times, but I didn't know they were together or that things had gotten so close. While we were outside on the deck, I talked to Grandma Ruth. She shared more about what happened at the club last weekend. As I helped make dinner, I kept an eye on them. My dad had always loved my mom deeply. When she left, it felt like a light in his eyes turned off. But now, as I watched him hold hands with Miss Taylor and chat on the deck, that light was back and maybe even shining brighter than before. I had never met Miss Taylor until now, but I had seen her pictures on the wall at Grandma Ruth's house. Dad had told me a bit about her earlier today. She looked nice in the photos, but in real life, she was even more beautiful. Since I didn't know her well, I wasn't sure what her expression meant as she spoke to my dad. However, I could tell she had special feelings for him. As they chatted, she held his hand tightly like it was very important to her. I almost felt a little bad when I went out to tell them that dinner was ready. Taylor held Henry's hand tightly as we got up to go inside for dinner. I didn't want to let go of it. They had set our chairs right next to each other on purpose. Henry was such a gentleman. He pulled my chair out for me and pushed it in as I sat down. Then he took his seat. I didn't think Jimmy ever did anything like that. I found myself comparing everything Henry did to what Jimmy did, and Henry always looked better. I guess since Jimmy was my first serious boyfriend, everyone else would be compared to him. I wanted to keep holding Henry's hand, but I realized I had to eat with my left hand, which was not going to work. As we ate, I felt Henry's left hand rest on my right thigh, and I felt a nice flutter inside me. I noticed that his left leg was close to my right leg, as if he wanted to be near me. I turned my body a bit to feel even closer. "So, Natalie, my mom told me you go to university. What are you studying?" "I'm studying healthcare management. I think medicine is interesting, but I didn't want to go through a lot of school. So I chose to work on the admin side. I really like it. My dad said you're a teacher and coach volleyball." They shared a quick look. Henry's eyes seemed to say, "You weren't supposed to tell her I mentioned you." And hers said, "Too late." I am, at the local high school. I love my job as well. Most of the dinner chat was about getting to know Natalie or her sharing good things about her dad. I saw that she was trying hard to make him see her dad in a good way. That made me happy because it meant she thought I was good enough for him. Growing up, we were always expected to help clean up after dinner. We had to take our own plates away and then help with cleaning, like doing the dishes, wiping the table, or cleaning the counters. Even Dad joined in, so I thought the same way would happen tonight. "Henry, after we clean up, would you like to go for a walk?" He looked at me and smiled, clearly happy that I asked. "I'd like that," he said. "But Mom had other ideas." "That's okay. The three of us can manage. You two go for your walk. You need some time alone." Henry, it was clear that Taylor liked me as much as I liked her, and Natalie and Miss Ruth were on our side too. Miss Ruth encouraged us to leave the cleaning behind, so we walked out the front door, holding hands. We walked around the neighborhood for about 30 minutes, chatting and learning more about each other. Soon we headed back toward my street. Just before we got there, she mentioned we could go somewhere else. "You know, I've never seen your house." "Do you want to see it?" I asked. She nodded, and we walked past her parents' house and entered mine. I let her look around while I waited for her reaction. "I'm impressed," she said after a moment. "Since you're single, I thought you might have a party keg in the corner and posters of women in swimsuits on the walls." Without pausing, I replied, "Oh, that's in the bedroom?" She shot me a look that could knock anyone down, making me burst into laughter. "I'm just joking, just joking." "You better be," she started to say, but then her expression changed. "What's wrong? Do you realize you just called me honey? I'm sorry, maybe I went too far, but that's how I feel about you." She smiled sweetly at me and said, "I do feel special. I just didn't know if you recognized it too." She wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me. I felt a rush of warmth all over, and my heart raced. Our lips were moving together, and without really thinking about it, I felt my hands resting on her waist. Taylor's. I lay there with my new guy behind me. I couldn't help but giggle. I thought he was doing it all wrong. If Jimmy was the example, he was supposed to roll off me, tell me how great it was, ask if I enjoyed it, and then not really pay attention to my answer before going to the bathroom. But in that moment, with Henry close to me showing his feelings, I realized that my past with Jimmy was not right, at least not in this way. His interest in me had faded, but it wasn't my fault. He needed something more exciting than what we had together. He was easily pulled into the wild lifestyle of the Healy's, and I couldn't match that. For 3 years, I was not just angry, but also thought I couldn't make him happy. I learned that I was wrong. It wasn't all his fault, aside from his choice to cheat and not express his feelings. We simply wanted different things and didn't fit well together. I wish I had understood this sooner, but now I had someone new, and he felt just right for me. I was sure of that. He held me close, and everything felt perfect. As we relaxed, he pulled me even closer and kissed the back of my neck lightly. It sent a shiver down my spine and made me feel all fluttery inside. The quiet was broken when he asked a question. "How much longer do you have on your lease?" I thought it was a strange question, but I answered anyway. "I have about 2 more months. Why do you ask?" "I hope this doesn't scare you, but I can't stand another night without you. I think you should come live here with me. I can help you pay the rest of your lease." A big smile spread across my face at this idea. I turned to face him and looked into his warm brown eyes. "I think that's a great idea," I said. "How about you stay here tonight, and we can start moving your things tomorrow? I can ask my friends to help so it won't take long." "That sounds great. But we have been out for a while. We should probably head back to my parents' house." "I agree, we should probably shower first." "I felt proud to walk around with your scent, but it probably wouldn't be right to do that in your parents' house or in front of my daughter." We got into the shower together. It took longer than usual since we were both there, but we managed to wash up. After that, we got dressed and headed back to your parents' place. When we got back, we found your mom and dad sitting on the deck and chatting. We joined them like nothing had happened, even though we had been gone for almost 2 hours. "Sorry we were gone so long, Mom. We lost track of time," I said. "That must have been quite the walk you two took. You even had time for a shower before coming home," she replied, teasing us. We weren't embarrassed about it, but we knew we had been caught. Henry Taylor and I got married quickly after we got our license. It was a simple wedding. We both had big weddings before, but they didn't go well. Maybe it was a little superstition, or maybe just the fact that we didn't want to go through that hard time again. Whatever the reason was, we found ourselves standing in front of a judge at City Hall. We made promises to each other, saying we would always be together. Gina and I didn't have a honeymoon right after our wedding because we didn't have enough money, but about 2 years later we took a trip to Hawaii for a week. When it was time for my honeymoon with Taylor, we chose a cruise to Jamaica. We took a lot of pictures during the days and spent our nights in our room. Our neighbors were watching us and had mixed feelings about our activities. Some seemed disapproving, but most smiled and looked happy for us. Taylor really wanted to have kids. I was okay without more since I already had Natalie, but I liked being a dad and was open to the idea again for Taylor. Still, we hadn't actually started trying for that yet. Taylor knew how to use this to trick me, and she really got me. I was at home, taking a few days off after finishing a big project. We had been married for about 6 months. Taylor was out, but she hadn't told me where she was. When I heard her car come into the garage, I felt happy she was back. But my happiness changed when she burst through the door from the garage into the living room. "You liar!" she shouted at me. This was not what I expected, and I quickly felt like I needed to defend myself. "What's wrong, honey?" "I can't believe you did this to me." I was shocked and confused. I didn't know what she was talking about. Taylor often worried about trust, but we hadn't had any problems lately. I thought maybe she had seen something that wasn't what it seemed. I got up and moved away from her, feeling a bit scared she might get angry. "Honey, what are you talking about? Don't act like you don't know. You did this to me on purpose. Don't act like you don't know." "Sweetheart, I'm not pretending. I really don't understand what you mean." "Oh, you're just acting like you don't know. I didn't do anything wrong, dear, so I'm not going to admit to anything. Just be honest, Henry, and you'll get it." I started to feel very frustrated. I couldn't figure out what I might have done or why she seemed angry with me. Tired of running in circles, I stopped and let her come closer. "Please, just tell me what's happening." She lightly hit my chest, then looked deep into my eyes like I had just done something really terrible. I was totally caught off guard. "You're going to be a dad, you jerk." Her face broke into the biggest, most beautiful smile I had ever seen. but I needed a moment to understand what she was saying because I was expecting something bad. What? You're pregnant? 2 months along, dear. I just got back from the doctor. I picked her up and spun her around, so happy with the good news. Before, when we were just talking about it as an idea, I felt fine. But now that it was happening, I was over the moon and couldn't wait to have a baby with the woman I cared for. Taylor, since I had never been pregnant before, I wasn't sure how it should feel. But I knew something was off. I felt lightheaded and dizzy, sometimes a little sick to my stomach. My first thought? A brain tumor. I know that sounds extreme, but I was worried that just when I found happiness, something bad would happen again. After everything with Jimmy, I couldn't help but wonder if fate was against me. When Dr. Markley walked into her office with a smile, I thought it was just good news. Maybe I had the flu or something small. But when she put the bottle of prenatal vitamins on the desk and said the word pregnant, I felt happier than I could ever describe. Having a baby with the man I loved was a dream come true for me. After I told Henry, we rushed to my parents' house to share the exciting news. I was their only child, and they were starting to worry about not having any grandchildren. We decided to have a little fun with them, just to get back at my mom for a funny mistake she made before. Mom, Dad, Henry, and I have something important to tell you. Please sit down. This sounds serious, dear. Is everything okay? Mom asked, looking worried. I pretended to get emotional and let Henry take over. He brought a lot of feeling to his voice as he spoke. Taylor just came back from the doctor. It seems she has picked up something. Well, I guess you could call it a parasite. Mom looked a bit panicked. Oh, Taylor, honey, how did this happen? Is it serious? It's pretty serious, Mom. I think I'm going to feel really sick for a bit, and they say I will gain a lot of weight soon. That's just how it is. Oh, dear, everything will be fine. Is there a treatment? Can they give you something to help? Not really. I just have to let it happen. Doctors don't know everything. We can look things up and see what we can do. Did he tell you what it's called? I think the medical word is pregnancy. Mom started to write that down, but then she realized what I said. Suddenly, she was so happy that she cried and hugged both of us. Dad had been quiet the whole time since Mom usually does the talking, but I saw tears in his eyes when he understood he was going to be a grandpa. Henry Taylor and I had just celebrated our first anniversary, and she was moving around the house, looking very round as she was more than 8 months pregnant. She looked even more beautiful, and even though her belly was big, our wonderful life together didn't change. We still enjoyed each other every day, and it often helped her relax and sleep better. Life felt good. We had just finished dinner, and were ready to watch a movie on Netflix when my phone rang. It was Natalie. Hey, Nat, what's up? I asked. Dad, can you come to Northtown Medical Center quickly? I could hear the worry in her voice, and I got nervous right away. What happened, sweetie? Are you okay? In that moment, I felt Taylor get tense too. I'm fine, Dad. It's Mom. She was in a car accident. It's really bad. I felt a little better, but was also frustrated. Why was she calling me? Look, honey, I'm glad you two have worked things out a bit recently, but that doesn't mean I need to help her. She is John's responsibility now. There was a pause, then she said softly, Dad, John's dead. He was in the accident, too. I blurted out the first thing I thought, and then I felt a bit bad about it later. Really? That's good. But that still doesn't make your mom my problem. Just a second, sweetie. I paused my call with Nat to give Taylor a quick update. She just nodded and went into her bedroom. Sorry, sweetie. Go ahead. I know this isn't your problem, Dad. It's mine, and I need your help. They are asking me lots of questions and want me to fill out many forms, and I don't know what to do. Savannah needs help, too. She's trying to deal with her dad's death, and she's not having much luck either. Okay, sweetie. Just wait, and I'll be there as fast as I can. But don't expect me to talk to her or even go see her. Okay, Dad. I hung up the phone just as Taylor walked out of the bedroom wearing her coat. Hold on there, beautiful. Where do you think you're going? Aren't we going to the hospital to help Natalie? I am. But you're staying here. I don't want to take you, being pregnant, into that place full of germs. But I want to be there for you and Nat. I know, but I don't want you to catch something. It will be boring for you, and you won't be comfortable. I promise I'll keep you updated, okay? She gave me a sad look, but agreed. Okay, but you better tell me everything that happens like I'm right there with you. I drove to the hospital and found my way to Gina's floor. I went to the nurse's desk and was sent to the waiting area where I saw Natalie. She gave me a big hug and told me what was going on. It looks like Mom will be okay, but she will need some therapy. She broke her left leg and arm, but the other injuries are not too serious. Do we know what happened? There's actually a police officer with her right now. He said he would let me know after he talked to Mom. A little while later, the policeman came out of Gina's room. Miss Weston, thank you for waiting. It seems your mom was quite lucky. She won't face any charges because she was just a passenger. I'm sorry. Charges for what? And you are? I'm her daughter. I'm here to help with things for my ex-wife. Well, early test results show that Mr. and Mrs. Hartman were both under the influence of something, but we don't know the exact amounts yet. Since Mrs. Hartman was just a passenger, she won't face any charges. Since Mr. Hartman passed away, he can't be charged either. However, there might be a civil issue with the other driver, so she should be ready for that. I wanted to be sure I understood. Officer, just to be clear, John and Gina were both drunk or using something and they caused an accident. Is that correct? Yes, sir. And how are the people in the other car? Luckily, no one died, but there are some concussions and broken bones. Their car was wrecked, too. It will depend on how good the Hartman's insurance is. Okay, officer, thank you very much. I'm going to check on my mom. I sat down to wait for what would happen next while Natalie went into her mom's hospital room. I quickly texted Taylor to give her an update, then thought about everything that had just happened. Part of me wondered if this wouldn't have occurred if she was still with me, since I didn't drink alcohol. But another part of me felt sorry for her. No matter how she treated me before, her husband was dead now, and she had to face growing old without the two men she had loved. I thought about whether she would look for someone new or just enjoy being single with her friends, waiting to become a grandmother. She would need to find a job, something she hadn't done much since college, before she and I got married. She probably would have to sell the house, and I guessed she would want to. I couldn't see that house as anything but a reminder of the two men who were no longer in her life. My thoughts were broken when Natalie came out of her mother's room. She wants to see you, Daddy. I told her I'd ask, but she should be ready for a no. It was odd. I had been holding on to my anger toward her for a long time, but in that moment, it faded away. Why was I still upset? I had my wonderful daughter. I had a good job that paid well and that I loved. Plus, I had a lovely wife and a new baby on the way. What Gina had done was in the past, and honestly, it seemed like she was dealing with the consequences now. It was tough to go through, but in the end, things got better. I decided to forget the past and move on. I'll go talk to her. Natalie looked surprised, but then she smiled. I think she knew I was ready to face this. I went into Gina's room. She gave me a weak smile, likely from the medicine making her feel weak. Henry, you came. Thank you, she said. How are you feeling, Gina? I guess my body will be okay, but inside I'm a mess. You can't see it because of the drugs, she replied. You know that John is gone, right? I heard. I'm really sorry about that. Are you? Well, at first I wasn't, but just now I realized that all my anger was changing me into someone I didn't want to be. So I've decided to let it go. Yes, I'm sorry you lost John. I know you will need some help with this, but I want you to know that Taylor and I will be there for you. That sounds nice. I hope to meet your wonderful wife soon. Natalie told me she is about to have her new baby sister. You must be really happy. I am. Very much. Henry, I want to say sorry for what I did to you. I thought my marriage with John would be amazing, but it turned out to be just normal. I loved him and he loved me, but I already had that with you. I regret what I did. Deep down, I think I knew you would never share me. I used that as a reason to be with John and make it seem like it was your fault. I was wrong, and I owe you an apology. Let's just forget it and move on, Gina. I'm over it. Friends? Yes, for sure. This is just the first of many big changes for me. Without John, I need to sell the house and find a job, too. I'm not sure how to do that. I don't have any skills. Just keep trying to get better. When you're ready, just call me. I can help you find a job. That would be great, Henry. Thank you. I said goodbye, eager to return to Taylor. All of Gina's forms were finished, so now it was just about her getting well. I left the room and saw Savannah with Natalie. I walked over and gave her a hug. "How are you doing, Savvy?" "I'm okay, Uncle Henry. I need some help with the papers, but other than that, I'm fine." "I'll help you. Let's go." The forms needed at the morgue were different from those for a living person. I had never dealt with this kind of paperwork before, but we managed to get through it while chatting. "I know you haven't talked to your dad in a while. I hope it's not because of me." "No, it was about my mom. I believe she would have wanted Dad to find someone new, but her family and friends, including you, meant a lot to her. She wouldn't have liked what Dad did with Aunt Gina. He didn't show her the respect she deserved, and I couldn't forgive him for that. But he wouldn't have done it if Gina hadn't agreed. That's in the past now. If you need anything, Savvy, just call me." "Well, since you asked, I feel like I've lost my parents. So I'm looking for some new ones. Would you and Aunt Taylor want to adopt me?" "Darling, we would be so happy to. In fact, you're coming home with me and Nat tonight. We should all be together." And that's exactly what we did. After we finished at the hospital, we all got together back at our house. Just for fun, when I brought Savannah in through the front door, I said to my very pregnant wife, "It's a girl." Epilogue. Henry just turned 50, and I can't believe how much my life has changed in the last 9 years since that morning when Gina asked me to be nice and share. Savannah and Natalie both got married. I walked them down the aisle. Natalie married her boyfriend, Michael. They live in an apartment not far from us, and Natalie just told us she is 3 months pregnant. Savannah met a guy on her first day at her new job, and they fell in love right away. They got married after just 2 months, but now they have 2 kids and are really happy together. The kids call Taylor and me Grandma and Grandpa. I helped Gina get a job as the personal assistant to one of our competitors. I helped Gina get an interview and gave her a strong recommendation. The man who hired her said it was one of the best choices he ever made. Last year, Gina got married after thinking a lot about whether she wanted to marry for a 3rd time. Taylor and I are very happy together. We have a big family now. We have our daughters, Nat and Savvy, and their husbands, plus our grandchildren. In the first 5 years of our marriage, Taylor was often pregnant. Our kids are Samantha, who is 8, Jasmine, who is 7, Nathan, who is 5, and our youngest, Carmen, who just turned 4. Taylor is a wonderful mother, and my love for her grows every day. We decided after Carmen was born to stop having more kids, so I had a small operation, and she had a procedure too. Miss Ruth is still with us, but we lost Richard 6 years ago. He was able to see his first 2 grandkids born, and we are all grateful for that. Miss Ruth still lives at home, but we visit her every day to make sure she has everything she needs. Soon we will sell both houses. Then we can all move into a bigger house together. The kids are growing every day, and we will need the extra space. Hey, audience! If you like this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.